Clay County School Board meetings, workshop, January 23rd, 2018, come to order. I'd like to welcome all the citizens of the county, and we thank you for being here. If you would like to speak, you can speak. There's an opportunity at the end of the workshop, and your participation is welcome. The workshop items, draft agenda review for regular meeting on February 1st, 2018. Mr. Davis.
Okay, good morning everyone. Sorry for being a couple minutes late, but we'll go ahead and get started. As you see, we have recognitions of awards for All-State Band and Corps students, along with transitioning to presenters for career and technical education presentation. And to go back, it'll probably be more of all-state band, and we will get to chorus at another time because they have a presentation and practice for that night. So this will be updated to just be an all-state band, and we'll identify chorus at another time.
So Ms. Bush just changed that on the agenda. Just pay.
All right, C1 is minutes for a regular school board meeting for January the 4th.
Well, I've got one.
C2 is Florida Youth Challenge Student Employee Work Calendar for 18-19. There for FLICA, there's no significant changes. Everything is kind of duplicated for what we did last year in line. C3 is revision to the controlled open enrollment
I
plan.
don't have a C3 on mine. Do you have C3?
Refresh, because I do, but mine came up with a different agenda. I mean, like the wrong date.
It was there yesterday and then.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I just added the attachment.
so this is when we wanted to make sure that there was backup in there. So we approved this plan
Right over here.
last month, and there's two revisions. The first revision is that we had a typo, and it said that lottery would end on May the 23rd, and it's actually March 23rd. And then we went back to make sure all of our seats were accurate, and we found that at Clay High School that we didn't account for AMI. So we reduced it from 257 seats to 161 seats. So the plan will be updated according to the necessary adjustments and changes.
I was surprised to see Thunderbolt on the
Yeah.
list.
Yeah,
That's the first year they've been on it.
yes ma'am. 22 seats.
But notice the schools have been taken off as well. Swimming pens no longer
Yeah,
there.
swimming pins increased by 100 students this year, so it's interesting to see the mobility. Yeah,
Yeah.
so the Thunderbolt's got a lot of kids. So C4 is the personnel consent agenda. On here, I'll make sure that there's some items you need to be informed of. Is that Mrs. Chastain, the Title I supervisor, will be retiring. So celebration for her hard work within this organization. Marcus Dooley will be retiring as a principal. He's done a great job working with Katie to support new principals for the last 6 months. We're appreciative of his work. And then you have a resignation of Tommy Fitzpatrick, who will be going to Broward County to be the director of fleet, making $40,000 more financially. So we'd love to keep him. He'd love to stay, but it's a lot of money to pass up. In that, you will also see that we recommendation to move Daryl Sweat. He's currently the supervisor of transportation to an interim director of transportation. And I say interim because Daryl's been here for the last couple of months, learning the transportation ins and outs. I don't believe it's a good time to go out and open the pool for candidates. In addition, it gives an internal candidate opportunity to prove competence between now and the remainder of the school year. And then at the end of the year, we will be able to determine what is best for the area of transportation, whether or not Mr. Sweat's the right person to lead this work, and Tommy did a great job, or whether or not we need to open it up and reorg that division. So just to be open with kind of where we are. You'll see Heather Roche as adding to be the principal at Ridgeview Elementary School, along with Tracy McLaughlin being the principal at Discovery Oaks.
We've heard some excitement about that, by the way. So, good choice.
Mr. Brock, anything else?
Nope, that's it.
All right. C5 is the ratified the CESPA contract. That will go out to all employees on Tuesday, January the 30th, to be ratified. Once we have that information, then we'll be able to add the documentation for percentage of approval to move forward with this in the board meeting. C6 is to ratify the contract between the school board and the CCEA with SPIVA. This has already been ratified. Excuse me. 95% plus of the staff approved the current contract, and this one is ready to move forward. C7 is the agreement between the school board and parish and associates. This is with our work for number talks with our professional development. We have had 241 individuals that have been trained, with another 100 coming on board. This is impact 26 schools in our school district. This was originally slated for January 3rd, in which we had to cancel. So we had to pay this individual's travel fees because they were already here. So we would have, this contract is increasing the money for $924 to bring them back to pay for their travel lodging, so that we can extend this professional development to our teachers. And this is all used through SAI funding.
Can I make a quick comment?
Yes, ma'am.
In all of your information and with the upcoming Intel math, it always says 52% are on K through 8 math content. And no, that's good. I mean, that's exactly probably a fact.
Yeah.
But when it is tested, realize, just everybody understand that they're taking first grade teachers and second grade teachers and testing them on 7th and 8th grade curriculum. And when you're not teaching it constantly, I mean, if I asked you
Yeah.
what figure slope, you might be able to, you might all know slope. But it's one of those things that I don't want it to sound like our teachers are not capable of teaching math in their current grade level, but understanding that this is just that
Yeah.
foundation to see where they're going, which
Right.
is great, which is awesome. But
Yes, ma'am.
I always read that one fact in all of that information, and I think, makes us sound like idiots.
And I don't, it's not presented that way. A gap analysis is just for us to identify our gaps, and it's to show that we just have areas of opportunity to improve content knowledge. And it's very hard to have a K-8 continuum of mathematical practices, and especially when you're teaching K-1 and 2. So,
Even tough.
yes, ma'am. All right, C8 is career pathway articulation with Santa Fe College. This is only, between the school board, this is only articulation for Oakleaf agricultural biotechnology students. They're one of the classes that we offer a number of classes and credits for eligible students. Number of students. Yeah, currently we have no students that are involved, but since they have this pathway, we want to continue to have this agreement just in case a student elects to transition for those courseworks.
A while back, I sat on the advisory board for Biotech Florida.
Yes, ma'am.
Previous career, part of my job was in biotech, and there are tremendous jobs out there. If we can put more students on that pathway, there's a lot of opportunity in the North Florida area. They don't have to really leave.
Yes, ma'am.
That biotech program at Santa Fe is a separate campus built in Alachua, across the street from the University of Florida. Built a research park. The University of Florida is not there anymore.
Right.
It's all little companies, little startup companies, but they go across the street and hire interns. So there are opportunities if these kids wanted to drive from, obviously from Oakleaf to.
And that's a conversation that-
Alachua, that
Yeah.
And I appreciate this conversation I've had with Mr. Connor about what we do to expand it and to get more kids excited around
yeah,
it.
that's a fantastic program.
C9 is a proclamation for CTE month, and the theme is celebrate today, own tomorrow. And this is just recognizing the hard work of CTE within our school district, and focus on the entire month to highlight their efforts. So raise awareness. And I will be speaking today to the Oakleaf Business Council just about how we prepare our students to today prepare our students for tomorrow through CTE programming. So it's going to be another 29 PowerPoint slides. But it's only about 15 in it. It is really, we skimmed down.
You'll have to add a whole section for the
I know, right?
personal finance
I
that's
know.
coming.
C10 is our agreement with the Clark School of the Deaf. This is funding through IDA through our IDA funding, and we currently have 4 students within our school district with these services. And this is, we service kids from pre-K all the way to 22 years of age in this need through exceptional education.
Mr. Davis, what schools does this affect?
Mike, do you know what schools these 4 students are from?
Do we try to keep them all at one school, or how does that work? Because I know sometimes with services, you want to.
I think these students are actually,
Which school is it?
this is the Clark School. I think they're attending school.
Oh, these are for pre-K
yeah.
students to go to
I think they're there,
Clark School.
yeah,
Clark
they're
School.
to Clark
Oh, I
School.
see.
Yeah, they're there all year.
They
for
have,
services, 'cause we
their
just
pre-K program, the state of Florida requires a certain level of certification and type of certification to work with hearing impaired young children. And my understanding through research is like 8 people in the state currently that hold that. And it would not be fiscally responsible for us as a district to go through the process to do it. So we send those students to Clark, because we only have, I think the history is in there, about 4 a year at the most.
Yeah, it's been between fluctuating the last 4 years, 4 to 5 students, but in, I think, 09, it was, around 10, 11, it was around 11 or 12 students, so just services that we aren't able to accommodate and extend to kids.
So I know in the language impaired, is it secluded classroom? I don't know.
Self-contained.
Yeah.
Self-contained
Yeah.
classroom, I've seen deaf children in
Yeah.
there, so I was just curious how that works.
I think it's the severity of the need.
This is, right, and that's a good question, Ms. Gilhousen. For these students, because of their age, what the Clark School focuses primarily on therapeutic intervention and not as much on academic,
Oh,
to
okay.
get them ready for the academics part of it.
Okay.
So that when they do transition to wherever they may go for kindergarten on, they've had a lot of those experiences with different strategies. The Clark School does not believe in developing the use of sign language, so that is a little bit of a controversial
Really?
element to it. But these are kids who also have various devices that their hearing is such that they can engage in that level of intervention. So that,
But I will find, I'll give on my follow-up, the ages of the students along with what schools they will eventually or currently are assigned to.
So I know we had some conversation around the language impaired classrooms, and so for those families that this would affect, this might be,
Right.
an alternative or.
Yes, ma'am. C11 is just approval for out-of-state travel. Most of this is a number of competitions for our students to compete in and attending conferences. C12 is Bright Minds Development. This is a summer enrichment program for our students from the age of 5 to 16. They've had a 3-year agreement. This is an extended of another 3-year agreement. They're in 5 schools, which is in 4 elementaries and 4 elementaries, and they are 1 junior high school. This is a point where this year I've walked many of these campuses in the summer. I do believe there's opportunity for us to focus on greater opportunities to reduce summer learning loss for academics. So I'm going to try to work with Stallman and Connor to figure out what we can do instructionally to better own the academics within this summer programming. I will work with Bright Minds to ensure that they are paying for facility usages, but also paying for supplies and resources, so it's not coming out of our pockets as it relates to toiletries and those types of things. But I do think it's a good program for kids. They do a lot of scholarship opportunity for kids who can't afford to go to summer care. I just think we can help Bright Minds get better and stronger as they move forward in this district.
And you did check to see if the paper towels and all that type
Yes,
of
ma'am.
stuff, that it will be their cost, not.
Yes, ma'am. I have a phone call out, and I will ensure that we are not incurring the costs, and they have to pay for that.
Because I've been told that our custodians are very frustrated.
Yes, ma'am.
because Their supplies are being used,
Yes, ma'am.
and they also have to clean up after them.
That's
Our
right. I love to mention
custodians, so
and
there's been
resources.
a few jobs there that we
Yes,
need
ma'am.
to keep a close eye on.
If I could mirror that, not only just a close eye, but if you are going to be working with them on the academic side of it, to encourage them to keep their children, how can I say this, in a typical classroom setting. I've heard just grumbling.
Sure.
Just grumbling.
We'll make sure we protect the
Um,
environment, our schools, and then
Is
I think we want to do a better job with the field trip experiences, to get our kids out to cultural experiences that they've never seen before. So try to do a better job reining with that.
Good.
I've got Terry Connor on it. He's ready to go. He understands what we need to do to improve it, and we'll see how well we can do it for this calendar year. C13 is a dual enrollment articulation agreement between school board and FSCJ. Right now, we don't have any students that are enrolled, but we would like to have an articulation agreement between this provider, because we have students, especially in the north of the county, as Orange Park and Oak Leaf, that may be a little closer to go to FSCJ in order to take coursework, so we just want to make sure this agreement is in place. Last year, I believe we only had a handful like 2 or 3 students that attended, and we only spent it, it was around $1,300 for textbooks and for enrollment for courses. But we always want to have that availability for kids. C14 is the Clay County Sheriff's Office Secondary Employment Contract. This is pretty much for our deputies to work extracurricular events that we offer within the school district. Their rates have gone up from $26 to $30 for their deputies, and for supervisors from $30 to $34. So this is just acknowledging that their wages have went up and that we're agreeing to them, and that our school staff will be prepared to pay through their budgets to generate through their athletic and extracurricular events. C15 is Intel Math Professional Development. To date, I believe we've had over 120 teachers that have been provided Intel Professional Development. This is all about conceptual mathematical understanding. We see cohorts that are Intel trained have a better understanding of preparing our students to be successful in mathematical practices. This year it'll be 30 teachers again, but it'll be a little different structure in the sense that we're going to have, out of the 30, 18 slots will be for Dodea schools, and Dodea will pay a portion of it. We will have 10 slots this year for Title I schools, in which Title I portion of money will be paying for those 10 slots. And then we will use SII funding to offer, I think it's Lakeside Elementary School, LSE.
Yes, I think.
Lakeside Elementary School. That way that we have a blend of a high performance school, Title I schools, and Dodea grants, Dodea schools, in order to have a wider range of touching teachers within different schools, and that way they can do a train-the-trainer model to continue to train other teachers within their grade band or within their content, continue to grow in the area of mathematics. Once again, this will be a $1,000 supplement that will be extended to our teachers for their classwork and coursework, which is rigorous. I will say that we're going to have to be creative the following year because the DIA grants will be, and this is our way to kind of drive into it using Title I and SII in order to replenish.
This is our 9th cohort, we'll have a 10th cohort, and then the money will be gone. So hopefully everyone will take advantage of that. And Title has been stepping up and supplementing for the Title schools.
Is there a Dodea grant that we can apply for again?
Oh, we will be
Okay.
applying every year.
Right, I agree, I would assume that, but.
We applied this for this current year, but their funding went from 80 million to 30 million, and so we were not part of the lucky cohort this go around. I personally have had lots of sit downs and phone calls with Dodea the last couple of months, and so I'm excited about where we're going.
The thing with Dodea, you need to understand it only hits select schools. And so there's a group of our schools that are not trained, and they're actually some of our most challenged schools. They're in the Cherry, Orange Park feeder pattern, so we really have to look for other funding sources to help them.
Our Dodea grants tend to hit the same schools
Over.
over and over, just because of their eligibility of military students. So
That's it. I mean,
but
that's-
it is another source of income, so
Right.
that always helps us.
And this is like I said, this is the reason why we're using different funding sources this year to wean off of using Dodea. C16 is renewal for our contract with Commercial Fire Incorporated. This is by board policy. We're required to have fire extinguisher and kitchen hood systems inspections on an annual basis, and this is a two-year agreement. We've used the same company, I believe, Dr. Lebeco, for the last 6 years.
Correct.
And the beauty about the last 6 years is that the price hasn't changed. And I believe that if we went in a different direction, that we would have a higher price, so we're trying to lock it in now. C17 is an agreement between the Utility Authority and Amendment Discovery Oaks Elementary. Discovery Oaks Elementary. This is where we're going to have easement for water and reclaimed water, just for us to look at wastewater required for the contractor to be able to gain access and move forward with the Discovery Oaks Elementary.
We have some representatives here too.
Yep. Yep, and the,
Time out of your busy
Yep.
day to come listen to our workshops.
well, there's another, at the end of our agenda, there's another item that we want us, they're here to speak to and we want to present to the board. But yes, they're doing good work, good, thank you for being here.
That doesn't sound good.
I know, right?
Okay. Thanks for the advance warning.
Yes, ma'am. C18 is pre-qualified, pre-qualification for contractors for the month of February. C19 is the change order for Discovery Oaks Elementary. This is pretty much our tax savings is around $396,000 that we'll save on being tax exempt. A total, which in this one will be $122,000. C20 is the final phase for specifications for the ACE testing facility.
How many more times are we gonna?
Yeah,
Oh my
really.
God.
When did it end up happening? I know it came back too expensive and then.
It's, I'll be honest with you, I spent a lot of time on this, too much time. But originally, this was started out as a project. It was going to be $500,000 to $600,000. We went out for an architecture, in which the school generates a lot of most of this money. They really do through their ACE and IB. Then it comes back where Mr. Davis is going to be around $900,000. And I'm like, I don't have the money for that. And then it ends up being, openly, honestly, it's going to be around $1.3 million.
What?
$1.3 million.
So has the school generated all of that money,
Yeah,
or is that coming out of?
No, this is all going to be generated by the schools, and for this year, they're going to use IB funding, ACE funding for the
They
next 2
don't have
years.
an IB
They don't
program.
have
I mean,
They use
sorry,
IB.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it
they're
was
gonna
like-
use
AP.
ACE and AP, I'm sorry, programming too. They generate a lot of money, so if you want me to, I can send you the breakdown of money they generate in order to show you what they have in order to build a facility. I openly told our operations division, along with Mr. Pittman, that we just don't have money to provide and assist, so we will be using money for 17, 18 money for his AP money and ACE money, along with some of his money that he has for 18 and 19 as well that he will generate. And he usually generates around $500,000 a year in one silo and that's for testing.
So what happens with the shortfall, because they're still, that doesn't add up to 1.3?
Yeah, we will get, go ahead, Doc.
A minor correction, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
It's
correct.
actually 1,033,000,
Okay.
so it's a little less impact. And really what we did was, we looked at his AP funds and the remaining dollars for 18-19. Once we meet those statutory requirements, we will use that towards balancing to fund this entire program.
So what's the timeline for this? So you're talking about 18, 19
Yeah.
funds, but they're,
It'll extend into the 18-19 year. I mean, they'll initiate. I mean, we're finalizing plans, and it was all about what they could actually hold, what it had to have, what the facility had to have, and then it will initiate the plans, but it will roll into the 18-19 fiscal year. So it won't be completed this year. We'll be using upfront money to pay it. It'll be an extended project.
well, that's the part that worries me, that we're upfronting money, because we don't have money. And if we had money, I mean, I've already asked to look for places to find money to fund our insurance premiums for our employees.
Right.
So I'm concerned that we're upfronting money.
And
We're not.
we're not upfront
to
money.
be
What I'm
co-
saying is the build. Sorry, the build is happening now. He has money for 17-18, and that will initiate the project. And as we transition to the July, he will continue to have funding generated to be able to pay once the money comes in for AP.
Mr. Davis, what type of reasons has it gone up steadily? I mean, what is going on that's making everything more?
And you're talking about for the build, the bill for a square foot has gone out of the roof. So right now, I mean, it's like $160 to $170 to build per square foot. So it's really to a point where we originally thought we would be able to get it for $130 per square foot, but now the competitive prices have just, business is moving forward. So I think that's the causation. And then we were going to originally build a facility for 156 kids. And the 156 kids couldn't accommodate the cohorts that he had in order to provide a isolated location for testing. So he has a number of cohorts and classes where he has to administer testing for 180 and 196 kids, and this testing facility will hold a little bit over 200 kids. So now instead of using the cafeteria and have a modified schedule to do AP testing and ACE testing, he then can he can continue his schedule for lunches and all those activities, and have one hub where he can test everyone at one central location. Eventually, it can also be used in a multi-purpose capacity too, if you needed to use it for trainings, if you needed to use it for AP, ACE, informational nights, or professional development. It's a good use, and trust me, I have spent a number of meetings with Dr. Legucco along with Mr. Kemp and Mr. Pittman about making sure that the money is right, so we don't have to go into, or I don't want to come to the board for any portion of the reserves.
I find it, I'm not poking back at you, but I
Yeah.
feel like, I feel the need to verbalize this, that it's extremely frustrating to me that the process works this way. And I don't, no one on this board, I don't think, wants to hinder progress within the school district. But that being said, I filled in for Ms. Studdard, who was filling in for Ms. Caracas, who was out of town, and Ms. Studdard had a death. And so I filled in on that contractor approval. Remember when I did that for you?
Right. Right.
You had the funeral.
Yeah.
So, so I saw the bids, and the 3 finalists came in and presented. And the frustrating thing was, one of the requirements and one of the selection criteria was, could they insure construction costs below a certain amount per square foot? And I don't remember the details
Right.
of it. And so what's frustrating to me is that then when you award a bid, then now they're coming back and saying, oh no, we can't do that. Well, that was one of their selection criteria. And the
Why are we
other,
holding them to that? That's an
Yeah.
excellent point.
and then the other frustrating thing I think is that, and I understand the school was excited, I understand the school generates these funds. It's a sort of unique situation because not all of our schools have the opportunity to generate such funding.
Right.
So they couldn't even have the opportunity to build such a facility. And I remember in the presentation, again, I fully support them wanting to have it, but it'll be the only one in the state. They're touting, we'll have the only testing facility in the state. And so it just is concerning to me that this board isn't kind of gonna be left holding a rotten egg, so to speak, from a financial standpoint to the public of why did we move forward to build the only one in the state. Maybe there's a reason, because they're expensive to have. And then I also wonder about how does it affect, the fish model. This is outside of cost per student station. We know the legislature has looked at what school districts are spending as far as cost per student station. And then those were my
Yeah,
concerns.
sure.
I just wanted to verbalize those to my fellow board members, just as you think about it. But my other question would be, what are they giving up in 18-19 for those funds? Those funds would have been spent on something in 18-19, so what are they giving up?
17-18.
The 17-18, they had already designated to build it.
But from how were those funds spent in 16-17? Yeah, exactly.
And I know in past years, that I know that school had been frustrated that some of those funds had been used to help support programs at other schools. Because we are one school district and have a responsibility to provide
Sure.
education to all of our students. I guess that just was one of
Yes,
the
ma'am.
things.
So today is just approving, approving the plans. I will get fish impact. I will get financially. I'll give you a financial update of where that funding will be arrived from, and then give you a part of what they'll be giving up for 18-19, so you'll be able to see. So at this point, this is just approving plans, and we can pause if you believe there's a pause within the board. And
I'd like to ask someone
sorry, Dr. Kemp's got his sick today.
why, when you have the meeting and they are saying that they can do it for X amount, and then they come, do you often have people come back and keep raising it more and more and more, that we can't do it by what they said they could do?
I wasn't involved in this selection process, so I'm not sure what they had said that they had promised. Were they saying they could do it for a certain cost per square foot?
Well, there wasn't I don't recall exactly a not to exceed, but that was one of the criteria on the qualified list.
What I'd like to know is, does this happen frequently? Is this very rare? And if so, legally, I mean, is there any legalities to this that they're coming in saying, we can do this, and then they can't? So what is what can we do?
Recourse.
Yeah, what is our recourse?
I'd have to find out more about what happened with the project. I know it was a design build, so the design wasn't totally complete before they went out for contractors. So they might have said, yeah, we can do, based on what we've been talking about on the loosely based design,
Well, see, and
we
these are
can do
things,
that cost.
these are
But if
things we
things had
don't know.
evolved and changed to, now we're doing it for 200 kids and, you know, we want to add, you know, this space to the facility,
Well, if
you know,
there was
those
some
things
change-
have changed,
But, and,
which would have driven up the cost, which then at that time they said, yeah, we could have done it for this price, but now that these things have changed, the cost
yeah,
is gonna
I'm
change
sure
with
there's a
that.
lot of back and forth things that have happened, but I just wanna know on this instance why. And, because to me, when they come in and present their wares, so to speak, the three finalists, I've always taken them at their word, that they can do what they are telling me they can do. And if they don't, then what is our recourse?
My understanding, and I can't remember if it was you, Mr. Davis, or Dr. Kent, but I talked to someone about this issue.
Okay.
Because we saw the escalating cost
Right.
was not news to us.
Right.
We've seen that over the last few months. And I can't remember who I had the conversation with, but what I was told is that ACE has certain requirements for this building, and I'm not sure that
Yeah.
those were factored into the original designs. I think that's
They
why
were,
we've seen.
because
Yeah,
I
they
sat
were.
on the committee for the when they chose the engineering architect firm.
Um,
And the requirements were clearly stated where the entrance and exits, where the sign and where the bathrooms are, that, you know, all of that was very, Bryce, you might have been on it with me. It was, you know, all pointed out where that all had to be. So really, it sounds like it changes the number of students
Yes, ma'am.
and so the
Good one.
capacity, so it must be larger than what it was originally gonna be, but that's still an awful,
But that
I-
shouldn't
I-
change the
I
cost
agree.
of the square
increase.
foot.
I agree.
We're talking
If you could-
500,000 to $1 million.
This
If
just
you
sounds
could
just like my
share with the
meeting
board
yesterday.
a little more clarifying information.
Oh, well,
That
absolutely.
would help.
So, absolutely, and listen, I agree with everyone at this table. Dr. McGucko, we had a meeting for an hour yesterday, and these are all some of the same concerns I have. So, today, the reason I didn't pull, if it would've been the final push forward, this is just a final, plans or specifications for it.
I think the ship has sailed, I guess, and I was just wanting to express so that we're all informed, because we know we're the ones who will get the phone calls and we're responsible, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Especially if we have to put money, upfront money until they get more in, and that's a big concern to
Yes,
me.
ma'am.
Because we can't afford that.
I
But
agree.
we're
We
not
don't
doing
have
that, correct?
I mean, not as right now, no, ma'am.
Well,
But I'll give
and
you-
that-
I'll
that
give
would
you-
come to the board first before
Absolutely.
that's even considered.
I agree.
Okay, thank you.
All right, C21 is the schematic final specifications for Middleburg Elementary School restroom renovations. So they work there. C22 is the final phases of Orange Park Elementary kitchen renovations as well. C23 is the disposal of the Fleming Island Elementary portable that burned down. We have to have on record that in order for us to move forward with removing this from our facility, it needs to be a resolution to dispose of it. This was an electric fire. The heater was pushed to emergency heat, which then triggered an extreme heat element that ended up catching on fire. The total damage and the cost to rebuild and replace this portable is around $37,000. The portable 841, which is the portable, has a wood structure, which is one of the main problems, and we're lucky we called it earlier because it would have just grew tremendously with all the portables that are in the area. And this portable is 26 years of age.
So I know that I know it's impossible to put the portables onto the building management systems where, I know in the actual structure buildings that
Yes, ma'am.
they control the heating and air. electronically.
Yeah.
So what is the fix to not have these switches be put
I
on?
mean, honestly, I don't have a fix. I mean, other than we come and we gotta figure out some way to tap in, remote access electronic thermostat, which would cost us extensively to put in every one of our 900 portables, but it'd be able to gain greater control of it. This is a situation where it was cold and we had a day off on the 3rd, I believe, and an administrator or a custodian, whomever went in, and instead of just putting the heat up, they just put it on emergency heat, which brings it quickly to heat that room up, and it's just overheated. So I think right now we're trying to do as much coaching as we can about how to interact with these thermostats, what to keep them at, because the one thing about the portables, the beauty of it from a teacher's perspective, you can control the climate any minute. Every day is like, we want portables, the teachers want them. So we just got to be able to continue to coach and train about how to use and
And I would
interact
say,
with them.
just my professional advice you didn't ask for
Yes,
is to
ma'am.
document that training. Because
Yes,
from an
ma'am.
OSHA and a National Fire Protection Association standpoint, if we do retrain employees not to use the emergency heat function, that's adequate retraining. Just tell them don't use it, and then obviously accidents happen, but.
Right.
Yes, ma'am. So right now the recommendation is to demolish and remove.
I have a question.
Yes,
How
ma'am.
does the smoke detectors work in the portables? They each obviously have their own.
Own individual.
But is it, so it's not linked to the main fire
No.
alarm, so,
We're fortunate that we had a teacher that was
Yeah.
that was working that evening, and I don't recommend teachers staying late for everybody watching, working that evening. And she saw smoke and called the administrator and called me, and then rescue was there within 10-15 minutes
Thank
and
goodness.
put it out. So it was fortunate. So
Did the teacher who had that portable lose everything?
not everything. We had over 50%. Over 50% was lost. I mean, there were some things that we lost from a district perspective. There were some items that they lost from a personal perspective. So legwork on. I know that we replaced everything from the district that we own, but personal. I mean, you want to speak to that? Do we?
At this point, personal items are not are not district property, so therefore we're not responsible for personal property that's brought on school public buildings, so.
But do we have a dollar amount of what the teacher said?
At this point, I do not have an amount. A lot of the items though that I did notice were like, plastic bins, a few, books, so we're looking at those items.
And what grade?
It was gifted, so she serviced students from K to 6.
Principal Collins has, pictures of the damage.
Yeah.
It's deceptive from the outside of the portable, you can't really tell how bad it is.
Yeah, till you get in.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, don't walk in, you'll smell like smoke. It's
You
bad.
can smell it just walking by,
It's bad.
I mean, 100 feet
Yeah.
away, it's awful.
This is why we need to get it out of there as soon as we can.
I'm surprised you could salvage anything from it.
Yeah, well, if this is the portable, the heater was right here, so the main part is this wall and the ceiling part. So anything that was connected, there was a desktop that was gone and some books. Everything else in the middle of the room to the back of the room, we were able to maintain. And luckily, this teacher came to me in a board meeting and asked me for 5 Chromebooks, and Macaulay and Bunkley gave her 5 Chromebooks to work with her kids, and she was so excited. We're so thankful that she was so happy. She was ready. Well, she had them in there, and they were in the back of the room. I wanted to see her the next day. She goes, "Y'all just gave me the Chromebooks, and they were the first thing we went in there to get, and they were ready to go." So she was good. And the good thing is that Principal Collins was ready the next day to have another portable accessible for kids, and they continued the learning process. It was seamless transition. Just a teaching and learning moment.
This is a little bit off the subject, it's not about the fire, but on these portables, when we were having this extreme cold this year, I'm sure that all the board members got phone calls about it takes so long for them to warm up the portables. I had parents complaining because they were putting their kids in school with coats, hats, gloves, the whole bit. But what is the process for getting the heat on in an adequate time that the portables are at least Where are they?
Inhabitable.
Where are they?
Yeah, so,
You can't
there's two
Sitting there
I don't know if you
freezing.
want to speak to it, I can speak to it.
I don't know what the process is about what time
We
they
don't
turn on.
encourage them to, we don't encourage anyone to leave, turn them on and off unless they're over for break. So the biggest concern is when we have a break in service, when we're out for like the holidays. So this is where I encourage leaders of a school and also custodial staff to try to go in as early as they can in order to put them on, to put the heaters on in an area where it would heat up so it'd be a comfortable environment. That's why, January 2nd was our virtual day, but our administrators were at work. This is where I openly said in the email, go to your portables and turn them on and get them ready for kids. So the more we can be proactive and circulating to have them on and ready and available for kids, the better the environment will be. As relates to every day for the portables, as the same way with the air conditions in the schools, we don't turn them off. And we recommend them to have a certain threshold set point that's comfortable for our kids.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, when we had a father call and say he was gonna go pick his child up from school because it was forget the degrees.
And as you see, and we've got to do it, leaders have got to go and do what I asked them to do. It's so simplistic.
But the thresholds can be incredibly cold, and the thresholds can be incredibly warm. And that's the complaint that we've had with the controlled system within our portables and within our buildings. And this is one of those examples where teachers don't have there are a lot of teachers who are working on the planning day in their schools. Yes, a lot of them do virtual planning, but when they go in and you try to set, you can only go up to a particular point.
Oh, really?
And because that's the threshold that's been set. And, which is, in this case, and for the warm part of it, which is good, because you don't wanna hit the thermostat and hit it up to 90 and say,
Right.
ooh, it'll heat up even faster. It doesn't work that way. But when it only goes up to, let's say, 68, when kids first come in, yeah, still pretty chilly after you sit there for a while. And if it's 68, and yeah, once all of the children are in there, the building starts to get warm because you've got 26 kids or 25 kids, 22 children or whatever, sitting in this portable, and it is going to heat up eventually. The other side of that, though, is that they're portables,
Right.
and children have to be outside waiting. And on those days, teachers generally, and that's a principal thing as well, principals and teachers generally will say, get in here, do not stand outside, bring those warm little bodies in here. And yeah, it's still chilly when they first come in. That's just the nature of those beasts. Because, it was a wooden portable that burned, but the wooden portables were pretty darn solid. Whereas the plastic or metal portables that we have the lovely seams that go all the way around, and the windows and whatever. But it's having lived through that many times, the children frequently don't come dressed appropriately. The parents, yes, are upset. That particular day was incredibly cold, and that's a family's choice to keep their child home or not, but those portables do eventually warm up. And it's not gonna be immediate. It's not going to be when they walk in. And yes, I've seen my breath in my portable, and I've perspired tremendously as well.
And, we started building these relocatable buildings because we didn't have the money to build
Right.
permanent buildings.
That's right.
And
It was
it's
growing
just,
too quickly.
it kind of, it was like rabbits, they multiplied fast. And I know the bad thing is, the insulation, there's cold air,
Yes, ma'am.
they're hard to heat up.
But once you get them into that,
Yeah.
once you get them working.
I just didn't know
once
how
warm
long you
them up,
have to
it's
turn it
a
on
completely
before
different
to get it
situation.
decent by the time the kids.
Yeah, say a couple hours. That's why a couple hours. We usually have custodial staff that are there early anyways on
okay.
flex schedules
They're up-
that are prepared to
they're
run.
usually there around
So
6.
trying to make sure that's a
Well
priority.
before their time.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So D1 is consideration.
Mr. Superintendent, before you get there, you wanted me to remind you about the bus driver trainer
Okay.
position, to remind
Is that on
you.
allocation?
It will be, once you have the discussion.
Didn't we already,
So.
We approved,
all right,
we
so our
approved the job
Before I go
description.
for discussion, on the consent agenda, we are, so Mr. Fitzpatrick will be leaving as the Director of Transportation. We were seeking to put Mr. Sweat in the interim position. And since he's going to an interim position, we would not be filling the supervisor role that he's currently sitting in. Instead, what we'd like to do is take the remainder of his salary for the remainder of the year, is to bring on board 2 trainers so we can expedite the training process for our bus drivers. Right now, it's taken 6 to 8 weeks to train bus drivers, because the individuals that are providing the professional development are driving all day, and then they have a 2-hour window they can do training, then they gotta go drive again. So they're driving in the morning and in the afternoon, and the only time they can do PD is in the middle of the day. So someone who aspires to become a bus driver has to go 6 weeks and 2 hours a day, and that's the only opportunity we have. So by moving to adding the 2 allocations, which will be covered in the transportation's budget by using Mr. Sweat's allocation, we will be cost neutral in bringing those 2. The job description was approved, I believe, in December, and these 2 individuals who are currently in our infrastructure organization now are bus drivers. We'd like to interview and find the best candidates to move to a training process where we have 2 full-time individuals on board to train. And then I think we can cut it down from 6 to 8 weeks to 2 weeks to get more people involved in our cohort of training of bus drivers.
So it would be cost neutral for the rest of this school year?
Correct.
But it would,
At the end of the year, we'll go back and look and determine whether we can continue that same structure or we need to revert back. So the individuals going into this position will be will be transparent about this is from now until the end of the year for a pilot to see if we can actually expedite the market of recruiting new bus drivers, training them, putting them on the road, putting them in positions. And we'll determine at the end of the year whether or not the reorg will need to take place. And they'll know that if it doesn't work, then they'll transition back to their current bus driving roles.
How many bus drivers are we short right now?
I think we're pretty good. I mean, we're always looking to add substitute bus drivers. We want to have 25, and I think right now we're around 20, 17 to 20.
So it's getting better.
So we're getting better. And I think we're only going to get better as we approve to move the scale. So.
I noticed on this personnel consent agenda, there's a whole lot higher if you go.
Yeah, we were hiring.
The way down at the bottom of the,
There.
like 83 pages.
Daryl Sweat has taken his entire time to recruit and gain access to more people. So we're getting better.
So we're not gonna get those phone calls from softball parents?
I hope so. I hope not. I hope not. I hope not.
We have to have
I hope
available.
not. It's baseball, track, baseball, softball. I mean, it was the whole spring is just. I get hammered. So hopefully, fingers crossed. I gotta run to the grocery store. I gotta do online shopping. When it comes to travel time. Okay, D1 was put on by, I think it was Condon.
I'd like to speak on this, not the item because I know we'll discuss it on the board floor, but I object to this being placed on the agenda less than the 14-day notice. And when our policy says an item has to be submitted in writing 14 days prior to the agenda, and it's my understanding that it came in on Friday, which is 13 days. So I would like to ask the chairman, because I consider this an illegal item, to remove this and let Ms. Condon bring it back next month with the 14-day notice.
Mr. Daggett, would you like to address this? She said it was illegal for this to be placed on the agenda.
Yeah, our policy says, the superintendent, I'll read the whole section to you. The superintendent shall establish the agenda for school board, let me get the last. For the school board meetings in collaboration with the board chair. Board members may add items to the agenda for the board action. No agenda item submitted by a board member may be removed from the agenda without the board member's consent. Members of the public may submit agenda items to the superintendent or any board member to be considered for inclusion in the agenda. Any item to be considered for inclusion on the agenda of a regular school board meeting shall be submitted to the superintendent's office no later than 14 days prior to the meeting at which consideration is desired. Such request shall be in writing. Prior to each board meeting and before the publication of the agenda, the superintendent shall review the agenda, including all backup material with the chair. Superintendent and/or school board member may, with the approval of the school board, introduce an emergency item not on the agenda. The agenda for regular and workshop meetings shall be posted for the public and other parties 7 days in advance of the meeting. And as soon as possible, but not less than 48 hours prior to any special meeting called pursuant to Florida Statute 1001.372, subparagraph 1. After the agenda has been posted, changes shall be made only for good cause as determined by the person designated to preside, and the cause shall be stated in the record. No action shall be taken by the school board on any item unless the item is shown on the agenda or an amendment thereto, and the backup material adequate for the informed decision is delivered to the school board members at least 48 hours prior to the meeting at which the action is to be taken. This provision shall not apply in cases in which the school board determines by a separate vote that an emergency, as defined in paragraph 1.02 Florida statute. 2 of these rules does exist. These rules shall not preclude the right of any citizen to address the school board in accordance with the board. And this was amended January 1, 2015, and the board, 4 of us amended this, and at the time, if you all remember, it actually said citizens may submit items to our agenda, and we removed that, but we kept the 14 days. Now, I know we've had a workshop where we've discussed changing that, but we're not voted on yet. So right now, we're operating under our existing policy.
That's actually not true because, I'm fine with whatever you want to do. Obviously, you two had a conversation because that's the way that you would know it was submitted Friday.
No,
But-
I met with I did not have a conversation, and I don't appreciate you accusing me of something unethical.
Excuse me,
let me finish.
Okay.
I met with the superintendent, and I specifically asked him because you announced it
He
at the
doesn't,
last
the
meeting, and he
superintendent
said,
didn't get my email. He didn't know when I sent it. I sent it to Mrs. Bush and to
and I
Mrs.
called
Stutter.
Mrs. Bush on Friday.
And
when it
Mrs.
was
Bush
posted,
and I
said,
had
"When
a
did it come in?"
conversation about it, and I had to get the wording of this agenda item from Mr. Daggett. And I'm fine to take it off, you guys can take it off. But I will say, when you were chair, you added something 48 hours in advance. And I don't remember exactly what the item was, but I remember us
No.
sitting at an agenda review and there was something added within 48 hours. But
Only if it was something that the superintendent brought forth that was necessary that
No,
had
it
to
was-
be added. Not an item from me, but.
yes, it was
Yeah.
something that you had gone back and asked for, but I really,
It was for me, the GPS system, and it wasn't 48, it was
no, it
the
wasn't.
week before.
There was something
It was
else.
not
It was-
Ms. Bush, was there anything, because you brought this to my attention the other day through a conversation, so, and I asked you to look at if there was anything that, that we have done in the agenda review, because I honestly couldn't remember if we've added or not added, and,
The Synovia item was actually added
so this is what this is
3
what I was talking to.
days, 3 days before the agenda was posted. Well, 3 days before the meeting was held. It was the February 26th the February 6th meeting, and the agenda item was added on February the 3rd. So an item was added 3 days before the meeting.
But it wasn't on the February agenda. It was removed. If you go back and you look at the minutes for February, Synovia was removed.
We voted,
It was on the March agenda, and then Mrs. Bola put it on April. So March, we voted
March
to
and April.
cancel the contract. In April, Mrs. Bola put it on to rescind the vote, or I
Yep.
forget the exact wording. February, it was on the February agenda review, but for some reason it was withdrawn from the February regular meeting. Because I went back and looked. And Ms. Condon, to answer your question, I met with Mr. Davis on Wednesday for our one-on-one, and I asked if you had put it on because you mentioned it at the meeting prior. I then saw our agenda published on Friday. On Wednesday, he said, no, nothing had come in. And when I saw it published on Friday, I called Ms. Bush and I said, when was this submitted? And she said it was submitted on Friday. So that's how I know it was submitted on Friday.
Well, the item that I'm talking about that you added at the last minute on the agenda was on the November, date of the meeting is the November, November 2nd, regular school board meeting. And the item that was added at the last minute was, readjustment of scores used for teacher evaluation. But if y'all
That
don't
must
wanna.
have been something that the superintendent brought.
No, it wasn't, it was, when, it was the difference in the cut scores and you wanted to see if the board could do anything for the teachers that it lowered their scores. And we hadn't talked about it ahead of time. Again, if the board doesn't want to entertain this,
If the board
I'm
wants to
perfectly
allow it,
fine.
it's fine, I just,
And I'm sorry,
I
I
don't-
misspoke too, because it was the April 6th, 2017 agenda. This is the agenda, it was added April the 3rd, and it is on the agenda, and it was actually acted on and voted on. I'm looking
I
at
brought it to the
at
board and
minutes.
asked and said because Ms. Foley was new and the board through consensus
And I
said to
hadn't
do it.
written anything.
So,
I had gone in and
If the
spoken
board
with you
wants to
about it.
allow it, it's fine, I just feel that while our policy says 14 days, we should do the 14 days.
I understand the policy, and I'm hoping that we have a workshop soon
Well, we did.
another, because we've already gotten a response from Mr. Dagada, and we as a board have not.
that.
Right, that's cool. And the fact that when you brought it up at the end of the meeting, and then I saw it in the minutes as well, personally, this is just me, I assumed it was a done deal, that we would be doing that. Because you had brought it up and you had specifically asked, I would like to see this on the next, I'm sorry, I don't recall your exact words, but you had said something to the effect of, I would like to see this on the next agenda for the next board meeting. So I just thought, well, I guess this is going to be coming back up, and then when I saw it in the minutes, I thought, oh, okay, that's, there it says, and
And that's true, Ms. Condon did
That-
say that she would be bringing
And
it back,
I didn't
but our
realize
policy
the
says
writing
submitted
was,
in writing.
because I've never
So,
done anything in writing, so.
The next, does that not count as writing?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
No. And you know, there was 3 weeks, and if everybody
Dagger.
wants
You
to
would
allow,
ask him a
that's
question.
fine.
Okay, okay. Do you wanna say
I
anything?
did, I had just one comment, and I understand your concern about the policy, and I agree that we need to follow whatever
We
our
need to clean up
policy
the
is.
policy is what we need
I
to do.
agree. However, I feel like this is a time-sensitive issue, because if, and I don't know how anybody else is gonna vote on this, but I'm just saying, there will be a legal fee paid between this coming meeting and the next. So if we decide that we want to do something different than we're currently doing, we may end up paying money that we wouldn't have otherwise spent. So I feel like it is time sensitive that we handle this once and for all prior to that bill coming in.
Okay,
Madam Chair, may I?
yes,
Comment?
Mr. Dagger.
So two things that I wanted to speak to here, and one of them is there is an added sense of urgency here. And there was a comment as to the perceived illegality of this agenda item. It's my job to make sure that there are no illegal or unauthorized moves by the board in any type of action. In my view, I didn't draft this, there's no question about it, that 1.02E4, as currently written, is ambiguous. Even since the time that I've been here, I recall that there were some debates as to the meaning and application of the 14-day. For what it's worth, again, I didn't draft it, so I don't know the intent of the drafters. But I read this item as a 14-day deadline being applicable to public agenda items. That is, and I'll explain why. Here you have parallel sentences starting out with board members may add items to the agenda. Members of, and then it goes on to say members of the public may submit agenda items to the superintendent.
Or the board.
Okay, that is meaningful to me. Requests are to be submitted to the superintendent in writing, not less than 14 days, to be considered for inclusion. There's no such to be considered language applicable to a board member. It doesn't square up with my experience of how boards operate. That is, a member of the commission or a member of the board may add without consideration of some other board member. Whereas agenda items submitted by the public, of course, they may be considered. I think, honestly, read as a whole, I don't see the 14-day prohibition being applicable to board member agenda items. There appears to be, I can't put my finger on it, when and where, but there appears to be some inconsistency, if you will, in the past, not just by this board, but others, and you can blame it on ambiguity. Good news is, we're looking to clean it up, and we workshop this ad nauseum. This is not to say that the 7-day rule can and should apply to board member items. There is applicable. And then another thing I wanted to say, again, looking at this in context, a 14-day, you all meet on a monthly period. In a 14-day prohibition, consider what a tight timeline that imposes upon you in developing an agenda. You finished one school board meeting, you would have, if this 14-day rule strictly applied and clearly applied, you would have all of 10 business days, maybe less sometimes, to get your agenda items in. So I see that as being unmanageable. So I say that insofar as I do not see this as an illegal, with all due respect, not as an illegal or unauthorized action or motion, I should say. And second, I share, and I want to just put this out there, there is an urgency, personally speaking, if you will, because we're dealing with 13 other school boards, 12 other school boards, and I'm dealing with lots of different school board attorneys, assistant school board counsel, and the uncertainty complicates strategy and whether Clay will be on board for X, Y, and Z. I just put that out there simply to add that practical effect of delay. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Davis, do you want to say anything?
I'm not finished. I'd like to address Mr. Daggett.
I want to see if Mr. Davis has something to say, and then you can speak again.
From my side, it will be the board's decision. I do believe that, and I wish I had time to do my research. I think we put things on at this agenda review item. So, from what I hear from Mr. Daggett, and I'm not a lawyer, please know. If I'm interpreting it sounds like the board has a decision. Can make a decision to move forward with it. But that's going to be their decision.
Okay, Ms. Carrigan.
I'm fine with what the board decides to do and move forward with it, and actual discussion of the item would be that night. But Mr. Daggett, I don't agree with the interpretation. I think, the intent behind this when it was written, and 4 of us board members were on the board at the time. 14 days is what we have followed. The 14 days for the superintendent and staff to have items in, it makes sense, and we are going to work on it, and I agree that we need to clean up our policy. So where we go with from here. The one other thing I would like to point out, and Ms. Condon, your name is on this, so you might want to reread it. But the piece itself has a couple of errors in it. One being, it refers to you as school board member and co-chair. Mr. Daggett, you've been here 9 months, we're not co-chairs, that's sloppy work. The other thing is, under recommendations, as board members, we know your recommendation, you're putting it on. That section is only for the superintendent when he's bringing items to school board members for recommendations. So I would recommend that they just clean that up so that this is now a public record, so that this public record goes forward in the right format. That's all. I'm done. Thank
Okay,
you.
does anyone else want to speak before I say something? Everybody speak now or hold your peace. Okay. This is one of the most frustrating weekends that I have had, trying to figure out what is the correct, the right thing to do. I have spoken extensively to Mrs. Bush to try to get a timeline in my mind, and I want to share it with y'all so we're all have the same understanding. On Wednesday, per Mr. Dagada, you called and left a voicemail for him, and I guess it was to discuss this issue. And perhaps, and I'm guessing on this, I'm guessing that your voicemail, I think Dagada had called, Mr. Dagada had called you and inquired, are you putting this on the agenda? You mentioned it last month, is that right?
I vaguely
Did you call
recall
her first?
some
Yeah.
discussion.
And so then, there was this voicemail, and you said, yes, I want to put it on. So, just,
I'm uncomfortable with talking about other people's voicemails.
no, this is information I got from Mr. Dagada and Mrs. Bush. I was trying to gather a timeline so we could all understand how this situation evolved. If you will just let me go. That night at 7:46, Mr. Dagada sent a draft of this wording to Ms. Condon. That was Wednesday night. The January 18th, Thursday, was the 14 days before the board meeting. He sent you this draft Wednesday night, the 17th. Nothing came in. Ms. Bush kept, we talked many times, well, is she, she wants it on there, we don't have any backup, what is the, what are we doing? Friday afternoon at 2:18, you submitted the wording that Mr. Dagada had sent to you on Wednesday night. Then an hour later, as per the usual procedure, around 3, Ms. Bush released the agenda, and it's on there. And I said to her, we've got a placeholder here, she's gonna be sending, in whatever, but it didn't happen. So, in that effect, it did violate this quote, 14 days that Mrs. Caracas is talking about. But, so then I went and I pulled, remember when Mr. Dagada gave us the old language from this policy, and then he gave us the 11, I can't read your writing, 9/17 revision. And this is when we went through and looked at it, and we did never vote on it. So we legally are still acting under this policy. Therein lies the problem. This policy, this agenda, section 4, is probably the most poorly written section, and I hope the rest of our policy doesn't turn to be out like this. This can be read in 2 ways. It is ambiguous, it is not clear. All week, I bet I've read it 100 times over the weekend. You can read it one way, and I would say, Ms. Condon, I'm sorry, it wasn't 14 days. You had 3 weeks after our board meeting, or 2 weeks, whatever, to submit this. For some reason, nothing was done on Thursday, 14 days before, and it was done Friday afternoon. That was a stickler in my mind. On the other hand, when you read through this policy, and I have spoken at length to Mr. Dagada, to Mr. Davis, I want to call you Mr. Addison, and Ms. Bush, trying to work my way as chairman through how to resolve this problem. My biggest concern was we are in the middle of going to master board training, and I have tried every way I know how for us to have more peace and harmony and collegiate working together, collegially working together. This kind of blows it. So next master board, we need to have another talk. But if you read this, one way you feel like you should say this. If I read it another way, no action shall be taken by the school board on any item unless the item is shown on the agenda or an amendment thereto, and the backup material adequate for an informed decision is delivered to school board members at least 48 hours prior to the meeting. Then I've been thinking over the years, at different things that have come up, and tried to find some kind of way to be fair about this. My heart of hearts, what I really think the problem evolved from is when we did this policy, we did not have agenda review meetings. Before that, Ms. Bush would post the agenda the week before the meeting to the public. The day before that is when, if the years I was chairman, would come down and review the agenda. Everything was there.
That was 8 days before.
But I would always come down, review the agenda, then it was published to the world. We came and met, it was done. Now where the glitches come in, and this is what we are gonna have to address in a workshop, in my opinion, is now we have agenda review meetings. That, we didn't think about how this works with our policy. This came to me in the shower yesterday. That's where the glitch started.
That's 10 days before.
Because we have this agenda review meeting on Tuesday. The Friday before that, at 3 o'clock, Ms. Bush releases the agenda to the board and to staff. So we will have a few days to get ready for this meeting. Fine, that's good. But if a board member wants to put an item on the agenda, my preference would be that it be on the agenda today, the day we do the review, so we can get a full picture. I know that legally we can put things on for the good of the school district, emergency and so forth, up to 48 hours before. But I think where our snag is that if we come here and we have a review, and then a board member decides, Monday, I want to add this item to the agenda. Well, do we allow that? Do we not allow that? Can a board member put something on? Here's questions I want you to think about. Can a board member put things on the agenda up to 48 hours before the meeting? If not, when does a board member, is there a deadline for the board member to put an item on the agenda? Do y'all want it to be by today? Ms. Bush now on this Friday or Thursday releases it to the public, right? The whole schmoot, and it goes out to the world. We definitely, in my opinion, need to have everything that we can. There's emergencies that come up for the good of district, but for all practical purposes, when it goes out to the public, I would love to know that everything's on the agenda, but we do have that 48 hours, but the agenda review it's a good thing. We can get things worked out instead of being in the regular board meeting, but I suggest that we all have been remiss in not cleaning this up and getting it so that we don't have this type situation happen again. So we'll talk about it, but I thought, well, we could talk about it at the board meeting, but I don't think any of us want this to go out in a regular board meeting. It's not a good idea. So my only suggestion is that we have a workshop, that we have time for each of us to really think about the process from when she releases it to the board and staff, to our agenda review, to the release to the public, and at what point are we going to say to the board members, unless there's an emergency, we would like to have your item in. That's the only fair way, and y'all probably have some other ideas, and I'm open to them, but I do not want us to go through this again. So, and not only just this section, and I didn't get the chance, Mr. Daggett, to go back and look. I don't know what else is in section 1 other than this. Is there more in section 1?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Okay, well, I would suggest we have a workshop, get section 1 cleaned up, put it on the agenda, I'll put it on the agenda for us to approve section 1, and then I've spoken with Mr. Davis, and he has said that he will talk to his staff, because we need to move on taking each section, the HR, operations, finance, and we need to have, and, you know, I know they're overworked, but it wouldn't take that long to go
Yes,
through
ma'am.
and see
We're ready.
some changes that they would like to see made, and we could workshop those. But it's very important that we do this policy cleanup. And I think because of the nature of this, that we need to clean up the section, the first section, organization of the district school system. And I would like to suggest, if y'all agree, that we set a workshop and get this done, and ask Mr. Daggett to go through the rest of section 1, and if there's anything that he proposes changing, and we can read through it too. And but this isn't something to just think about for 5 minutes. I'm asking each board member, go through the process of how a board member is to put things on the agenda. It's very clear in our policy about citizens and what they can do. Just yesterday, I explained to a citizen that they had missed the 14 days, you know, so they're going to speak 3 minutes, you know. But I think we're clear on the public, but we're not clear on ourselves. And this is going to cause hurt feelings and dysfunction among the board. So please, let's have a workshop and get this cleaned up. And let's try our best to work as a board, and remember that we're here for the kids and to support education. This is very distracting and embarrassing that we are going through this. So would you put your calendar, get your calendars out, and let's find a workshop day, please? I know this month has been, and we want to give Mr. Daggett a little bit of time. We won't meet tomorrow, because I want you to have a chance to go through the rest of section 1. And if there's anything that you want to revise in that, or propose that we revise, be ready. So I don't think it'll take you that long to be ready for us.
I'll do my darndest.
Yeah, okay. But we've got the board meeting on the 1st. Let's see, we've got Monday night, we've got the 5th is a chorus concert, but
6 is science fair.
the 6th is the science fair. At Monday during the day, is it the 5th? How does that?
I'll be in Washington DC with the FSBA.
On the 5th? Okay. Tuesday's the science fair. We have the FSBA legislative days, Wednesday, Thursday.
Why don't we look at the following week?
Friday, we have the topping out at Discovery Oaks
The
at
people will still be
noon.
in Tallahassee.
Huh?
A few folks will still be in Tallahassee.
Okay,
No,
forget
we're
that.
both coming
We
back.
chose not to.
Oh, you
Yeah.
are?
We're gonna,
Are you staying Friday? There's nothing Friday.
I have a foundation meeting at 8:30. Ed Foundation.
Here?
Yep, the Ed Foundation.
So how long do they last? An hour, hour and a half?
Yeah, till 10, and then the tapping notes at noon.
At noon?
We could do it in the afternoon, maybe on
Friday
Friday.
afternoon's a fun time to have a workshop. How about Monday the 12th? Is everybody gonna be in town?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay,
I'm good with that
What?
during the day.
all right.
Not
We mentor on Monday.
So if we
that's-
did it
What
at
about in the
9,
afternoon?
We could do it at 9 o'clock.
we could do it,
Oh,
How
can
about
you
9
make
o'clock
9?
Monday?
9 a.m.'s great.
How about 9 o'clock Monday? Do you have
Does that work
big
with your
meetings at 9
schedule?
o'clock Monday morning?
I've got calibration walks the entire month of February, so, but I'll have my team lead those and I'll come here.
Okay, 9 o'clock Monday the 12th? And where do you want to meet for this workshop? Is here good?
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, this,
I'll check to make sure the room's available, but it probably is.
and if it's not, we could meet, is that room, no,
Just for policy 1.
this is just
Policy.
for policy, yeah.
the one,
Right.
the whole first section?
All right.
What do they call it?
Policy.
Section 1,
Organization, yeah, section 1.
organization of the district school
All
system.
right, so the
So
12th.
somewhere.
Okay, Monday the 12th at 9 o'clock in this room, unless Karen tells us we've got to go somewhere else. But I think that It will be a first,
Pre-employment room?
Yes, ma'am, we'll find, we'll try
yeah,
to
we'll
take
find
this.
a room. But I think that, that will do us all good, get this cleared up, because
Yes.
we don't need this kind of,
So we're
things
moving
going on.
forward and leaving it on the agenda?
And one thing I've been taught in the 25 years is when I have some concern or something, I go to the school board attorney and I act on the advice of the school board attorney. He told me that legally it could remain on the agenda, and it's because of the poorly written policy that can be, in my opinion, it can be construed either way. I mean, we could put it off another month, but I figure, these board members know how they feel about this. Let's just get it over with.
I agree.
So just let's get it over with and go on, because the majority rules and we proceed on. Okay. Leave it on the agenda.
All right, D2 is a strategic plan that will be from 2018 to 2020. This will be presented as a number of goals with initiatives and projects. This will be an annual document that we revisit as we obtain initiatives, we selectively abandon initiatives in order for us to have a strategic map for where we're going.
My only concern with this document is, and I think it's great, I think that I love the detail, is some of these things, because it is very detailed, if by approving, and it's a question, I don't know the answer, if by approving the strategic plan, if we are in a sense approving everything that's in it. And the reason that I say that is because there are initiatives in here that cost money,
Sure.
and
Right.
we haven't looked at those, and in fact, there are initiatives in here, and forgive me, Mr. McCauley, this is not a poke at you, but there's acronyms that I don't know what they are,
Right.
and so,
Right.
I know,
So-
I know.
And good, this is just vision work, so if we don't, if we do not tackle, let's just say if it's 1.32 and we don't tackle that initiative, but because of lack of funding, we will just note it and it will continue to be on the next year's initiative and project list in order for us to move forward. If we get to a point where it's on there for 2 years and we just don't have the money or we can't do it, then we will selectively abandon and take it off and replace it with something else we believe is centric to our work.
So this is a working document.
Yes, ma'am. It's gonna be a working document for annually, that, I mean, that we review.
May I say
Mr.
something?
Davidson, I'm sorry,
Go
go ahead,
ahead.
Ms. Curtis. Go ahead.
I'm glad to see something like this. We've not had a real strategic plan like this, I mean, probably ever. They've brought things in the past, but it was not quite on this scale where we're gonna see the progression of it throughout the year. So I'm glad that this is coming to us. It gives us things to look at that we weren't aware of what's going on and different programs and whatnot. So I just wanted to compliment it.
So I have two questions.
Yes, ma'am.
First, I guess, is it a state requirement that the board approve this? Because we don't own it, it's,
No, it's not a state requirement. You want to have a strategic plan just for vision of the work. And my reason for pushing it out to all the board members is to provide any type of feedback or revisions of this document so that we can all own this together. Or if you wanted to selectively abandon something or add something or reword something, I just did, me and my team and led this work to put it together so that we can continue to have a blueprint. But I extended it to each of you so you can have a stake in it so we can do it collectively.
so it's not an action item.
It would be signifying you're adopting it for us to lead our work for the future work for a strategic plan.
It's kind of like we're gonna hold them accountable
Yeah.
to see what their, report card, have they completed
Yeah,
something, are
it's
we
a good
satisfactory with
measure.
it? And if we wanna make changes to it, we can ask to see something different
That's
than
correct.
what's there. Well, that's the way I read it, and I know from FSBA, talking with other districts, we're one of the few districts that doesn't really have a strategic plan every year that comes to us, that we're holding our superintendent and staff, accountable for, well, did you reach that goal, that benchmark?
So I guess my ask would be that if we're going to adopt it, or vote on whether or not to adopt it, I think a presentation is in order. I really feel like I need to understand exactly what you're presenting in order for me to
Yeah, I mean,
approve or not approve.
it's up to the board. I know I sent this out, I would say weeks and weeks ago for feedback. Some of you presented feedback, some didn't present feedback, so I didn't know if you were just good with it or, so I'm open to, I will do whatever this board, would like me to do.
Ashley, we're gonna
I'm
get a
asking
lot
for
of,
slides,
We're
I know.
gonna get a lot of
You're
slides.
gonna get
I guess the reason that I had my question, which I still haven't had answered, is if it is considered a blanket approval because of things like Catapult is on there. And I know that had gone back and forth
Sure.
about approval and that costs money or takes money away from
Yeah.
the district. So if we approve this document, and then maybe Mr. Daggett needs to answer this question, I don't know, but if we approve the strategic plan, is it an overarching approval that we are saying yes to all of these programs? And then obviously the funding would still have to come back for us to approve. But my concern is,
So can I address this for you too? I'm sorry, Mr. Daggett, unless you want directly, you can, I can.
Your concern is,
It's if we adopt this, I answered this a minute ago, the answer is no. This is a fluid document. You could, by approving this, you're not saying that this is our vision for our work. And you're not saying that this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen, because at the end of the day, if I see and I'll give you an example of Catapult. So we have around 40 to 50 kids that are in Clay County, and some are not even connected to us, they're on different graduating cohorts that are in Catapult, but if I decide that I could duplicate those services internally, then I will come to the board and say I want to terminate the contract, and then I want to adjust the strategic plan stating that I want to abandon use of Catapult, and I want to think about rebuilding the mentality of Catapult internally, so that would adjust it. So this document is going to be fluid. It's not going to handcuff us financially. You will see that we will achieve some of these initiatives and targets, and some we may not ever get to because of funding.
I think you're misunderstanding my question. So my question isn't how you will use the document. I have the utmost confidence that you will professionally use the document and not hold it over our heads. I wasn't trying to suggest that at all. My question would be is because we are the presiding board over the school district, if in essence, our approval of the document doesn't mean legally that those things are all approved. Do you follow my question?
I still think that the answer is no to that.
Hey,
It's just a document for a
let me
strategic
butt in
vision.
on this one. This is a plan. This is, as you said, fluid. That's not saying we're gonna do everything in this plan, and we may not do some of the things in the plan because the budget and other things restrict this. And let me give you an example. Back long ago, I was president of the PTA at OPE, back when it was the neighborhood school, long before anyone thought of the word concept school. We were the only school in Clay County that didn't have a cafeteria. If you'll know that little building in the center of the campus that's sunken down, that's where we had to put on plays and productions. And you know how small that building is. My board and I went down to the school board office over here. Jesse Tynes was the superintendent, and thank goodness he just lived a block and a half from the school. So that helped, because that school was dear to his heart. And I can almost tell you all the board members who were sitting there, Jean Barlow, Martha Maxwell, this was the old days. We went down before that board and we pleaded our case. Our school was built in 1923, I think it was. We are the only school in Clay County that doesn't have a cafeteria. Everybody else has stage. I mean, it was nice. This school had been built so long ago, I mean, it was just literally falling apart. We said, we're to the point, please either fix us up or close us up, because this is not good for our kids. At that time, not knowing anything about the functioning of the school board, other than I was shaking, scared to death, I didn't know what we had done until after I got on the school board. Because I want you to know that Mr. Tynes and that board somehow, and we used to do strategic plans 5 years at a time. It was 5 years out, but it was always drop one off, add another year. The very next year, I don't know how it happened to this day, but the very next year, that cafeteria that you see at OPE right today is what was built that next year. And y'all know how impossible that's got to be. We don't talk about something and build it the very next year. It just, it takes, there's too much paperwork and hobbledehoy to go on through. But that's what I'm saying, is the strategic plan can change due to need or budget or whatever. So I'm not excited at all about having any, I don't have any problem with approving this strategic plan. It's what we used to call our 5-year plan. It was presented to us every year,
That wasn't my question. My question, I actually agreed with Ms. Caracas that I liked having the detail. That's how it started. It's very different than what we've had. So my question was, inadvertently, if we adopt this plan as a board, are we approving
Programs.
programming?
So through the chair, I can add a sentence on there that addresses that.
I should
If you
ask the
if
question.
you
I figured
feel
it was
the need.
appropriate to ask the question. and
I'm
that's
saying
all.
I don't think
why would
there
we
is,
have to
but-
bring that up before the board
I
when
mean,
it
it's just-
happened?
Right.
If we've already approved it, you're not approving
Right.
that in the strategic plan, but maybe you could put a sentence in there, a legal type sentence that doesn't obligate us to doing these projects or whatever.
I just think we could make it an information only item. I don't know why.
We've
we
always
don't
approved the
act on it.
strategic plan.
Yeah, we always have.
As far as.
The difference with
history
this
of
is, we're going to see results,
Mhm.
whereas in the past, like Mrs. Studdard said, it's 5 years, it would go and drop off, but we were never informed, did we meet any of those benchmarks and those goals? And so by bringing this every year to us, with the format that you have, we're gonna probably get very many slides at one time on how we,
Updates.
reach the goals, but I'm excited for that. I look at this more as a report card of what the benchmarks and what the goals are. And I understand what Ms. Condon's saying, especially with the catapult. Is this locking us in almost to like a second contract that we haven't signed? But I don't really, I don't see it that way, but it probably could have some kind of language added, for the financial
Yeah.
aspect of it.
I'll work on it.
Another comment about it, many of these things are not necessarily measurable unless we get data with it, and I know that a lot of our
I'm sure we're
data.
gonna get data.
Well, but that's how we determine if we're being successful or not. And in providing and implementing professional development, for instance, for ACTPERT, STAT boot camps, I mean, we can say, okay, we've provided these sorts of things, so hopefully the additional data beyond that, and this is
Yeah.
how our scores have improved
Right.
based on how we've
Right.
done this.
And
So
you would be
just-
able to
And I
see-
know within that initiative progress, we'll see a check mark, but it will be helpful to follow this through with, as a strategic plan. We should have measurable data
Right.
built into this so that we can understand that, yes, these initiatives
Yeah.
were successful.
So through the
So
ch-
that in the future, if we did an initiative and it wasn't successful in the same manner, we can say,
Right.
we don't wanna do that anymore.
Right.
This looks dumb.
Sure. And through the chair, good point. Anytime that I go to give you quarterly or biannual reports, it'll all be supported by how many kids were impacted by boot camps, how many kids passed college rating assessments, all that stuff, so we can determine whether or not we're effective.
Okay.
I don't mean to beat a dead horse here, but I'm thinking also back to some of our FSBA training where they talked about some of the financial, like monthly reports, how we don't necessarily need to take action on those. They could be information items, and I just don't want us to take official board action unless it's necessary.
I think, to answer your question, the strategic plan, if you notice, has been built from 18 to 22, and 2018. This is the initiative for 17, 18. We're looking at this over the next 5-year period. We haven't done one for literally it was voted on 5 years ago. And I believe that I remember strategic plans being produced and provided, and it makes it look good that we have a plan for no other reason than, I think the vote is more of an assurance saying, we agree with what he's doing, we agree with the idea of the plan, go forth and conquer, and let's, we're behind you in that respect.
I think it
That's,
needs to
that's
stay an
truly,
action item.
that's truly it, I mean, from my perspective.
I know you wanna be cautious, but I think you're being overly cautious on this. I mean, this is, you know, this is not.
Because there's no,
I think the difference is that the reason we were cautioned against approving the financial reports is because that is in essence certifying them that they're correct. Right. We don't have to wait to know that. This doesn't have the same action with the Auditor General and the reviews and things. This isn't an audited item where the financial reports are audited. That would be us certifying those are correct, which would be, could be a little sticky.
Good point, good point. Mr. Davis, proceed, please.
Okay. D3 is,
Is that right?
yeah, go back a little. Is special action.
There'll be some special actions once the investigation is concluded.
And you'll be
And I'll-
contacting each of
I'll call
us?
each one of you.
Okay. We'll look forward to it. We thought we had a whole month.
No, ma'am, sorry.
And now there's one placeholder, but y'all are okay with us adding multiple items that would be an A or a B or
Oh,
a
under human
C?
resources, yeah. Just put an A and a B, and if we don't get a B, you can take it off, you know, but that'll give you a place for it.
C,
So we'll need a C too.
A C,
A, B, C, D.
A, B, C,
D,
D.
B.
A, B,
D?
C, D.
Did you say D?
D.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, and I guess that was the
Wait a
reason for my
minute.
question,
This month.
are you okay with one placeholder since we don't know? I mean,
Well, that's kind of what it
You know,
always
that-
is, just with the Human Resource Special Action A. I just always have looked at that as a placeholder for all the ones that you need to bring once the investigation's been done.
Thank you.
We're good. Because there's, I realize with those
Getting in the
types of
weeds.
things, sometimes it is, it gets down to last minute, so we gotta have it. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, D4, public hearing for approval of the science textbook adoption, grades K-12. D5 is the public hearing for boundaries for Discovery Oaks Elementary.
I wanna know what these gentlemen wanna speak about.
That's it, all right, so,
You're
So-
not even on the agenda. Those
I
are gonna be
didn't
a
put it,
big-
I
a
intentionally
big-
didn't put this on the agenda because I wanted it, the agenda's closed, correct?
No, we're not finished
Oh,
yet.
we're still in a meeting.
Okay.
You want me to close it?
Well, I
But
just
then we
want-
can't
Then we
meet
can't
with you.
discuss
Okay, then,
anything.
so this is an item that was brought to me by operations. And there's a parcel, and Mr. Foss is here as well, there's a parcel in the back of Tynes Elementary School that is gated, I think it's around 2 acres, that we don't use, and we can't use in order to build. We were approached by the Clay County Utility Authority that would like to purchase this piece of parcel in the back of the Tynes, I'm in the back of the school, sorry. You may have a slide, in the back of the school. And right now, there's currently some water tanks, I believe, in the front of this part, the front of the school that they have access to, and this would remove the front, the front interactions, and then take it to the back of the school. For me, from my side, I just wanted to bring it to the board. I'm indifferent because I have, why I appreciate the continued partnership between Clay County Utility Authority. I think they do awesome work with us. This is going to be, they're going to have access to the back of the school. I don't know how much access they would need in order to create, I think they're going to have water structures and water tanks in the back. They're going to be not in the direction they're currently. I think right now they're horizontally placed and they're going to be put them up vertically. So, you may get some pushback from community members of what's going on and what is on that parcel. And then for me, I've got to figure out how we continue to allow the authority to gain access to the back of the property while we have in school. So
So what are you asking? Are you asking
so
to add this to the agenda?
I'm asking the board's feedback of whether or not this is a,
We can't, can we discuss that in
I
this
don't know.
workshop?
No,
This would be, this is an item we
Okay.
have to vote on,
okay,
which
then,
means general meeting.
right, then I
I
just
just
want to
need
bring
a
it to
clear
you.
explanation.
And I'll let Mr. the Fossen speak to it.
Well, real quick, back in June, we were having a meeting with TCUA regarding other issues, and they kind of approached us and said, hey, we got this, you have this piece of property behind Tynes. It's about 1 acre. It's high. If you've ever been out there, it's like 8 feet above the rest of the school. Had been a drainage field at one time. and please stop me if I'm wrong at all. What they wanted to do is to put 3 storage tanks there for reclaimed water. 3. And 3 storage tanks for reclaimed water. And that's really what they were asking. And they wanted to purchase that land from us,
And how much?
$30,000
For all that?
for 1 acre.
For 1 acre.
1 acre, yeah, sorry, 1 acre, and then
That's
the,
it?
well, the appraisals were, one was
I got you,
right at
Susan.
30, another one's lower.
May I add to it, because there's a little bit more.
Yeah, there probably is a lot
That's
more.
why
Should
we're
we
here.
have this
Um,
conversation? This should be on the March agenda, and we should be discussing this at a general meeting.
We can.
And we should get the presentation at a general meeting, right? I'm not comfortable.
Help me through it, so Ms. Studdard, if you want me to revert and put it back, or I was just bringing it for informational purposes today?
Dagotta, you listen to this. I personally think that, I mean, you can give us this, we can take these home, their information, but I think that you should add this item to the agenda for,
March.
well, why couldn't they do it in February?
That's less than 14 days.
Well, that doesn't, Janice, don't, this, just,
It's a matter of principle.
just be, well, you did it in April.
You all voted on it
This-
for Mary.
I'm not gonna get into
Move
it.
forward, let's go.
Mr. Davis, is it agreeable to the board to put it on in February? Is it agreeable to the board to put it on in February? Why are we delaying it to March?
This has been, we have not released this to the public.
This
So
is
it's
not, this
agreeable to
agenda
me.
won't be released to the public until.
Okay, well, I will add it to
Friday,
discussion,
Thursday.
from,
Thursday or Friday? Thursday.
Thursday.
7 days
Published
before,
Thursday,
right.
right.
So, I mean, it hasn't been released to the public. Does any board member have an objection to be placing this on the agenda for February 1st? Okay, done. So, Mr. Davis, if you would submit
I will.
the proper wording and so forth, and we will take these home, we can look at the pretty picture. But at that meeting on Thursday night, February the 1st, then it would probably be a good idea for you to be there to explain to this board why you're only offering $30,000 for this thing.
You want to speak to it?
Well, 2 appraisals were done, and 30,000 was the highest
Okay.
of the 2 appraisals.
How about telling us that on February the 1st?
And there's actually more there that's actually to the benefit of the school board, because we're trying to approach this as a collaborative, so there's a win-win, both on an operational context for the school board as well as the utility authority. And we can go into that in detail at that board meeting.
Okay, and that's another thing,
Thank you.
ladies, when you're looking at section 1, we've never, since we weren't even having agenda review meetings at the time we wrote that policy, how about also addressing, like, if someone like this comes up, if we could hear what he has to say now, it would help us in knowing, you know, kind of where we were before we get to the board meeting. By us not being able to hear him, then we're just gonna have to wait and get it on the night of the board meeting.
Is there a reason we can't hear it? I mean, we just added it to the agenda, so we're in the agenda review.
Why don't we just go ahead and do
hear
it? Is there any objection?
I think there has been precedence in the past to have public comment at our workshops. While our policy only says questions only, we have made exceptions in the past to have public comment, and he is a member of the public.
I'll abide by the board because we do have public comments on this. Well, it's school board comments, superintendent comments, we don't have, but it does say that the public can address it, and he, Mr. Daggett, will I be off base to let him go ahead and tell us what he wants to tell us?
No, ma'am.
Okay, go for it.
Good morning, and thank you for having us come to talk to the school board about a proposal that we would like to advance if at all possible. CCUA, we have had operational issues in Pine Ridge, Two Creeks area for some time. We have been looking for property to put tanks and an augmentation well to help supplement the services in that particular area. Currently, we have a transfer pump that's in a trailer, it's a trailer mounted pump in the front of the school that helps transfer pressure or energy from one side of the system to the other side to help maintain pressures. One way for the long-term operations is to put the tanks in that area because of elevation, pipe sizes, etc. There's a lot of advantages to the utility. So when we were doing our due diligence, one of the things that we noticed was Tynes Elementary has a well and 2 hydro tanks that are there on school property to support the fire system for the school. Clearly, the school board has operational costs that deal with that well, the hydropneumatic tanks, etc. Our proposal is that if in the transfer of the property in the well, we'll purchase the property in the well, we will take the school board off of that well and put it onto our system, because that our system maintains a either at or higher operational pressure to support the school. So you will have some operational costs that will come down that you won't have to maintain on a regular basis. Now, for us, these will be large tanks, 25 to 30 feet tall. We will obviously put security fencing around them. We will also put beautification measures by putting opaque fencing. We'll put shrubbery, trees, etc. to provide some beautification around it, so it does provide some screening.
Like 25 to 30, that would be a
Is it-
big tree.
Does that back up to a neighborhood?
No, there's a conservation area that is behind the school. The site that we're looking at was used for a septic tank and drain field previously. So there would have to be, if the school board wanted to use it, they would have to be significant costs for remediation, of which we'll have to do to put the tanks in.
So,
Are they fully enclosed?
Fully
The
enclosed.
tank, there's no access to the tank?
They are fully enclosed, and any access to the tanks has to be done through secured hatches, of which we maintain locks on both the ladders, and we also maintain security measures at each of our facilities that has to deal with sensors, etc., because it is illegal for unauthorized personnel to access our facilities.
okay, thank you.
And it'll have 3 tanks on it?
Yeah.
Ultimately, we will begin with one to support our existing services, and then over time, as the population grows toward the north side of Middleburg, we will, over years, we will add 2 more tanks. But the first initial construction will be 1 tank, 1 pump house.
Okay, let me ask you, on here, I see the bus loop and where this is.
Mhm.
But these 2 tanks down here off of Old Jennings,
Those are potable water, that's your drinking water. We're looking for tanks that are reclaimed water. That is water that moves through our wastewater treatment plants and is processed to a very high level, but we do not mix the reclaimed water with the potable water. And the reclaimed water is used for irrigation.
right. Yeah, I see that in some of these developments. We use reclaimed water, you know, we go. Let me ask you this. So, from what I am understanding, the school district really has no use for this property. We can't do
We're not
anything
gonna,
with it.
it's gonna cost us a significant amount of money to even begin to address it.
And I was thinking, the way it is located with the bus loop and so forth, and I'm thinking, you know, we've got, it looks like we've got this pretty outdoor
Yes, ma'am.
grounds, and you said this was higher,
Current.
it's high.
If you-
Well, is it gonna be, will it still be high, or will you level it before you put a 25, 30
Well,
foot tank?
when we say it's higher, is that whole area in the school and along that area of Tynes Boulevard is roughly elevation 60. And it tapers off to other areas which are elevation 30. So putting a tank near that school board gives us a higher advantage topographically, because we want to take advantage of gravity as much as we can. Because lower elevations means bigger pumps, it means more electricity, etc. So it increases our costs.
And through the chair, this parcel is currently fenced off and not being activated or
Really?
used by anybody in the school.
So it's really, sometimes we get that with schools, we have quote,
Yeah, areas.
something, some
I
areas
just
that
didn't
we
want it to
can't
be
do
a
anything.
recess field that may not be used by the PE kids.
I would have never.
But that recess, because there are a lot of portables out there.
or actually not portables.
Those are
Well,
portables.
we thank you for being here, sitting through our interesting workshop today, but I think that gives us enough information, and then if any of the board has more
Can I
questions.
just ask one question?
Yeah, we,
Are there pumps attached to this with noise that would affect the school?
We enclose all of our pumps in pump houses, and we use the sound deadening in the walls. So you may hear a little hum as a pump ramps up, and a little hum, but you're not going to hear a whole lot. It's not loud by any shape
So
or
we're not gonna
form.
have teachers saying, I can't hear in my classroom when those pumps stick on?
Only if they're trying to teach inside the pump house.
And, will you be asking the school district to share any of the cleanup costs from the environmental contamination from
No,
the
ma'am.
septic?
No, ma'am. That, we're looking at it just simply a fee simple property transaction for the property and the easement for us to access it. All remediation with the site will be part of our construction costs.
How are you going to?
let's get back to the access for y'all.
Yeah.
Tell me again what your plans are for access.
What we have proposed is both a utility easement and a ingress, egress easement. It's in the documents that we provided.
Do you have the PowerPoint?
I don't,
This is just a slide I kind of put together for ease, but
I don't see, just.
I can show you. Here is coming right off the
Yeah,
top.
I see the.
So
first
right
one.
now, there's a gate that goes right in there, so
There?
that's right.
Right, and here's the gate,
Mhm.
and then this is the road, what?
And that's the road that comes into the north, and this is actually, this is like a parent pickup as well.
Oh, okay, so they could get through there and come through this gate, okay.
So you have to
Yeah,
come through
good,
parent
'cause
pickup to
that's-
get to there.
Right,
Yeah.
just,
And if I,
Hey, we just have to ask about to do it during school starting and ending hours. We don't want you on here to pick up during starting and ending hours of school.
correct, and these plants are highly automated. We have pressure sensors when the system goes down, when the pumps kick on and off. We also have what we call a SCADA system that tell us of various operational issues. So these will not be, these plants will not have, this plant will not have permanently stationed staff. If there is an issue, we get to telemetry of an issue, we will send staff to check on it. But generally on a standard day-to-day operation, there may be an employee that stops by, maybe 2 to 3 times a week and would be there for an hour or two. If we have heavier scheduled maintenance, we would certainly, coordinate that with the school board so that we are accessing the site in, non-traffic times.
Yeah, we do not want y'all there
They don't
when
wanna
school's
be there
starting
either.
and school's ending. You don't wanna be there and we don't want you there.
Right, and I think that's mutually agreed.
Yeah. Have you sat in a line waiting at a school?
Yes,
Fine.
my son's in 7th grade, so.
Oh, yeah, you understand. So if you would just make sure.
Yes, we're very aware of that, and we do coordinate and collaborate with the school board very
Because the
often.
parents would lynch us,
Yes.
just for some familiarity, these are the current tanks that are there now, and as you come in through parent pickup, they're like right here.
Yeah.
And this is the trailer that, we get a sheriff that lives out there too as well.
Oh, okay.
So they come through there. And actually, right about here is that booster pump that they
That's
have
correct.
that's enclosed, so all of that would go away. The area that behind the school is right in here, and this is a conservation area back in through there.
Okay.
Hopefully that helps. And this was a pump house at one time, so there was a pump operating there at some point. That's what that is right there.
And the anticipated driveway would be on the left there at the end of that loop.
Yes.
And then back toward
The
the,
gate.
just cut out a section of curb to create access.
Now, put your fingers so that they all know where the gate is that you showed me, right?
There's a gate that's right here, right now.
So see, they wouldn't have far to go from the
Yeah.
parent.
We walked in there with their custodian. That guy's great, by the way, so if you ever get a chance to get the times, he does a super job up there. But he took me through here and we looked at it.
Okay. Well, I think that gives us a lot more information, and thank you so much for coming. Thank you too. I mean, not every day that someone gets to sit through our agenda review workshop.
Well, we have board meetings too, so we
Oh,
understand.
you understand, okay. All
Now
right.
be prepared to present all of that again February 1st for
Sure.
the community
Yeah,
and
because
and for actual questions from us at that time.
the pub- yeah, we'll be asking questions as though we've never heard anything.
Okay.
We've got to let the public know.
Understand.
Okay, school board attorney remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am going to distribute at the end, as we all walk out, the revised versions of 1.01,
Is it-
1.02, A through L. I'll just distribute them to you again now. I
Is it
gave them to you in
different than what we
November.
gave?
It's the same thing in November. I just want to make sure everyone has them, just for your convenience.
Right, okay.
I'm also providing to you, although I know it's not the subject of the February 12 workshop, I'm also going to distribute to you a proposed risk management policy again, just so you have it. I'll look forward to working with the superintendent and his leadership on the remainder of section 1, and I think we're meeting on that just this afternoon.
Yes, sir.
Good.
So that's positive. With 7069, now that I know it's going to be on the agenda, I just want to add another word of caution. You know, we're in litigation. It always gives the school board attorney the heebie-jeebies when we talk in a school board, open school board meeting about open litigation. We're also in confidentiality agreements with the co-plaintiff, 12 other school boards in this matter. I just say that because we just need to be very, very mindful that we don't talk about the merits, our status and standing in the case, anything like that. All of that is privileged, and I know you know that. I'm just offering that up again. Really what's being presented to the board by way of this action is, are we going to rescind or are we not? The decision that had been made to join the litigation.
Okay,
That's all, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Davis. Oh, no, you're not even on here. You've talked all morning. The next is school board member remarks. Sorry. Ms.
I
Boland.
just have one quick question. Warehouse situation, is there any problem with the paper towels in the warehouse? We're in the middle of flu season, and I heard from a couple of custodians that they don't have access to paper towels, and they're playing the old mash game.
Yeah, in order to have access, you gotta make sure, all they gotta do is put it in the proper orders and we have
It's
plenty
my
of.
understanding
yeah.
that they did, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
So if somebody would
If
check
there's a
on that,
particular school, call me.
I would appreciate
If
it.
there's a particular school, call me about it, but at this point, I haven't heard anything ever about that.
Okay, we want them to have
Yeah, I mean, it's an
Tools
easy
and
fix.
things, but I heard that the warehouse was
this
out.
flu that's going around. We've got to be very careful. Okay, Ms. Condon? Ms. Gilhouse?
Just kind of on that note, I've wondered in the past why we don't do hand sanitizer in the bathrooms of our schools. Is it a cost issue or, because I know that's more effective when it comes to flu prevention.
Yeah, I can look into it. I would say it's linked to, gosh, it's not something that school districts actually put in to the restrooms. It's not a supply historically that I've ever seen in
And
a
what
school
about
district.
soap?
Oh, yeah, soap's always,
Soap and water?
soap's always.
It just seems like it would be more cost effective to have, which I guess you just don't need soap and water,
Yeah.
but.
Mhm.
Yeah.
For the, and I know that most, if not all, well, most teachers have hand sanitizer in their classrooms as well, at least I hope they do.
This one too. Ms. Carrigan?
I have two items.
Okay.
And it was the two things that I had requested at the end of our January school board meeting. I just want to remind, please bring back the changes you're going to make to the contract process. And also, I had asked, could you bring 3 to 5 recommendations for where we can get dollars to help with the offset of the insurance costs for this year for our employees. So if there's any information on that that you can send to the board members, I would appreciate it.
Yep, had a long meeting yesterday. We'll, to the chair, we'll send it the next couple of days.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I want to remind y'all the reception tonight for the Clay County Teacher of the Year and Support Person of the Year starts at 6 o'clock and the event starts at 7. It's going to be a grand night in Clay County, and I can't think of anything else that I need to add. I appreciate y'all studying this the old policy and propose new policy, tweak it so that we are prepared to talk at our workshop. With that, I will adjourn the meeting.